Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of our National BDPA Tech and Career Talks. I am Devin Jenkins, Senior Technical Product Manager at GE Healthcare in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, our supply chain digital technology organization, and I am my National Tech and Career Talks leader. We host these talks every second and fourth Friday of the month. There are a few exceptions as we get closer to the conference, but as a standard rule of thumb, second and fourth Fridays, we're here. We've had a range of topics throughout the year. We've had some data analytics discussions, some things around cloud with AWS and Google, and some entrepreneurship topics as well. So we're glad to keep this going. In case you aren't aware, BDPA is Black Data Processing Associates. Was started in 1975 as a way to be a forum for IT professionals with the mantra moving from the classroom to the boardroom, but also as a means of developing our talent pipeline and ensuring that young people have computer programming skills as we move forward. So that's BDPA. That's our mission. That's what we're all about. And we're excited to have Nadiyah Johnson with us here today to share with us around diversity, equity, inclusion in tech startups in the tech ecosystem and the work she's doing around that. So I'll go through a quick introduction of Nadiyah, and then I will turn the floor over to her. So Nadiyah Johnson graduated from Marquette University with a master's in computational science and is currently pursuing a PhD with a focus on computer science and mental health. Her research is predominantly geared toward mobile health. Her research has granted her recognition at several conferences around the globe. She previously was my peer at GE Healthcare as a technical product manager with a specialty in data science. Her passions for diversity and STEM led her to launch her company, Jet Constellations, which is a local software company. It has a social impact arm, which functions to promote racial diversity in the tech industry through STEM education and entrepreneurship programming, as well as building a nurturing ecosystem of diverse techies and entrepreneurs. I'll let Nadiyah get into anything else she would like to share. The last thing I would say is she is a recent Milwaukee Business Journal 40 under 40 honoree, and she is also a professor at Marquette University. In her spare time, she enjoys painting and educating youth about computer science. She currently sells her art and pop-up shops at local art fairs. So if you ever happen to be in Milwaukee looking for some nice artwork, Nadiyah is the person for you. And if you look over my shoulder, that's her work right there. Those giraffes are her. So without further ado, Nadiyah, glad to have you here today.
Awesome. Thank you for the awesome introduction, Devin. I'm always so happy to see those little giraffes. I know I owe you another painting. Actually, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let me know when you guys can see it. So I'm actually going to start off a little bit about my art. It does play a huge role in most of everything that I do. But for those of you who do not know me, again, I am Nadiyah Johnson, founder of a software company, Jet Constellations, and our social impact arm, the Milky Way Tech Hub. I do have a pretty technical background. I always share with folks I do have a technical background with a bachelor's in computer science, a master's in computational science, and I have a profound love of technology, especially as it relates to leveraging technology as a vehicle to uplift Black people, people of color, and marginalized communities. Again, I'm also an artist. So what you see over here on the left is an illustration. I do quirky little illustrations when I have the time. I think I did this back in 2019. So feel free to follow me on Instagram if you haven't already. I love to post my art on social media. It's a great way for me to decompress, but also to just turn in and begin to tune into my creative side. And truly, being an artist has truly sculpted the way that I navigate in the tech industry. It's really sculpted how I've become a leader, and I hope that you all will sort of see some of my creative side as I walk through this presentation. So one thing about me that you'll learn pretty quickly is that I desperately want to make a change in this world. And one of my favorite quotes from Angela Davis is that you have to act as if you have to act as if it were possible to radically transform the world, and you have to do it all the time. So I live by that quote, and I'm one of those people who really, really, truly believes that it's possible to change the world, and I try to keep that in mind every day as I work through leading or being one of the leaders in Milwaukee's tech ecosystem. So to share a bit more about my journey, around 2017, I started to hear word that there were different corporations coming together to shape a narrative about the city of Milwaukee, that it was a tech hub or a tech ecosystem. And obviously, given my background at that point, having a bachelor's and master's in the field, I wanted to become more involved in the ecosystem. I just gotten my job at GE Healthcare, and I wanted to see what was up with Milwaukee's tech ecosystem. And it wasn't to my surprise to find that there were a lot of meetups that did not have the representation I was hoping for. I looked around, I did not see many Black people at all. I did not see barely any women. That was a problem for me. And unfortunately, it was a pattern that I had recognized throughout the course of my journey in computer science at that point. In academia, I went to Marquette University, so there are very, very few Black and brown folks in the classrooms or teaching. And then getting into corporate America, it was hard to find a mentor that looked like me. And so I thought, well, if we're going to shape a narrative about the city of Milwaukee that is a tech hub, I wanted it to benefit my community. And I wanted to make sure that we prioritize diversity and inclusion. So as you can see here, I've got a slide that sort of shows the opportunity here. I swiped from NM's website. And as you can see, there is quite a bit of opportunity to sort of help to make Milwaukee into this well-established tech ecosystem. But being at the intersection of computer scientists like myself and Black women, I know that when you type in the words Black and Milwaukee into Google, a whole nother narrative pops up, right? It says it's the worst place for Black people to live and raise their kids, right? And that Black people rather leave Milwaukee than stay here. And so, of course, if I were to, create a tech ecosystem, I would want one that centered the Black community and that worked to uplift all communities. And so that's what I did. I started Jack Constellations, our social impact arm, the Milky Way Tech Hub. And we are actively working to make Milwaukee a tech ecosystem where Black people and people of color and women and those of underrepresented backgrounds traditionally in tech can thrive. And so our hope is that we will create sustainable solutions around some of the disparities in the city that can be replicated nationally. And so we've had some tremendous momentum over the last couple of years. I love this slide because it is a reminder of how far we've come and of the significant impact that we are making in the city of Milwaukee. So we primarily focus on three main pillars. There's the STEM education pillar, entrepreneurship, and community. And so under the STEM education pillar, we have partnered with American Family to launch our STEAM and Dream program. Just last year, we've launched our STEAM and Dream program and had a reach of now approaching around 1,000 students within the area. So during the onset of COVID-19, we passed out over 300 or so laptops and produced online virtual curriculum and workshops to help students transition to e-learning. And so now we're, this year, I'm happy to say that we're scaling that nationally, and we're touching on cities in Atlanta, or cities like Atlanta. We'll be in Arizona and Washington, D.C. this year with our STEAM and Dream programming. So I'm so grateful to American Family and other amazing corporations who have partnered to help us to realize the vision that not only Milwaukee is a tech hub, but one where Black people can thrive. And so I'm truly excited about all of the momentum we've got going on within our entrepreneurship pillar, with the accelerator launching soon, and we're raising a fund. And just at the top of the year, we've been able to meet now with Vice President Kamala Harris twice. And I love to mention that because I think it speaks volumes to the impact that we're making and the reach that we are having these days as well. So I think one of the big takeaways for me is that it's really, really important to hone in on what your purpose is. And for me, I truly believe my life's purpose is to leverage technology as a vehicle to uplift marginalized communities, and then believe in yourself enough to take that leap and pursue it, right? And so this is what's come of it in the last 2 years. It's been just about a year, I think, since I gave my notice to GE Healthcare that I was gonna leave GE and take this on full time. And it's been an amazing ride. And I'm just so grateful for the traction that we've made. So I'd like to dive into the vision and the mission that we have, which is to truly increase more representation in the field of technology. And so there's this trending DEI that's been going around. I want to talk a little bit about what that means to me as a founder of Jet Constellations in the Milky Way Tech Hub, and how we're going about addressing diversity, equity, and inclusion in Milwaukee's tech ecosystem. So when you think of diversity, I think, personally, I think of just representation and participation from different groups, right? This could be different genders and races, ethnicities, abilities, people who are differently abled, religions, cultures, and so on, right? Even diversity of thought. And all of this is extremely important when building out either a company, a startup, or an ecosystem like we're doing in Milwaukee. The fact of the matter is representation matters. So when we applied this topic to the field of technology or startups, I can't help but think of the fact that there are so many different startups that are coming up. And they're aiming to disrupt the insurance industry, the financial or fintech industry, education, healthcare. And when I think about this, I also have to think about how these startups, or the most successful startups and companies, are going to impact our future, right? And then, of course, this makes me think, well, how did they get to where they are? It really ends up coming down to the support and the funding and the resources they have to get there, right? And so it pains me to think about the statistics. 3% of venture capital funding only goes to Black and Latinx-led startups. And so this is a very unfortunate statistic, and something that I think we need to address. Because the fact of the matter is that, founders often create solutions for people who they're close to or that look like them, right? And so when we're not backed, when our startups, our ideas are not funded, right? Oftentimes the ones that do lack representation. And so when there's no representation in the founders or the executive suite or in leadership positions, oftentimes our voices, our perspectives are not considered. And what ends up happening after that is these largely successful companies end up using, artificial intelligence and the most advanced technology that have built-in racial biases, right? And this, of course, then works to widen the disparities, not just in tech, but just in general in society. I think about facial recognition technology and how judges are using it now to make critical decisions on who is convicted or jail time, right? I think about the insurance industry using artificial intelligence to decide how much your policy rate is going to be, or the real estate industry deciding who gets the credit line, and so on. This impacts us, right? And so who leads in these companies matters. Who codes these companies matters. And again, when our companies are backed and when there is more representation in these startups, I truly believe that we will have more folks who are able to fully share our story, truly consider our perspectives, and build solutions that are tailored to our communities. And then there is the fact that the rich get richer right now in tech, right? Big tech, you think of the Facebooks and the TikToks and Twitter, Instagram, right? They leverage our data. I challenge you to Google Black Twitter. It's a real thing, right? The content that we put out in social media, on Twitter, this is content that is being used and leveraged and monetized, right? And sways markets. It's being fed into the B2B customers, right? And we don't really see a dollar of that. And so I'd love to introduce you to, if you haven't heard of her, a woman named Angela Benton. She's a founder of a startup company called Streamlytics. And this is a company that's working to help people of color to monetize their streaming data so that we can be a part of this ever advancing tech industry instead of just being the consumers, right? It's important for us to be producers. And so founders like Angela Benton, she's a Black woman, it's ensuring that we are playing an active role, right? Instead of a passive role in technology. And this is so important. And I think it also is a great example of why diversity matters in the tech industry, right? Because we want to close those gaps. And I don't know about y'all, but I do not want to be the part of the tech industry or any industry where I'm working and adding content and just consuming and not getting any money, right? I want to be a part of the engineers and the producers. And that's really what I'm looking to work toward with the Milky Way Tech Hub, is figuring out how to bring in people of color and Black people into roles where we produce the technology and we're playing these active roles in technology. So I'd like to then move on to what equity means for me. So, when I think of equity, I think of creating and supporting and sustaining the distribution of power, wealth, and opportunities within society. I know that there are a lot of companies, especially since last May, who have started working toward, increasing their DEI efforts, right? But then oftentimes when you ask, like, okay, where's the equity in the work that you're doing? They point out things like, oh, we're having a panel on equity. Or, oh, we hired a chief diversity officer. Or, oh, we are doing XYZ. And while some of that stuff is nice, it doesn't necessarily point to redistributing power and wealth and opportunities, right? And so I think that's really important when we're considering equity in general, to hold companies accountable, whether it's your startup or the company that you might be working for, as it relates to their efforts in DEI, right? It's important to just do the work. So I have this quote here. People always make fun of me because I'm always putting these really harsh quotes on my slides, but it's important. So this is a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Over the last few years, many Negroes have felt that their most troublesome adversary was not the obvious bigot of the Ku Klux Klan or the John Birch Society, but the white liberal who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers tranquility, to equality. And so you might wonder, well, how does this map back to equity? And for me, I think about this quote whenever I try to have a conversation with either corporations or different organizations, and they say to me, people just aren't ready for that conversation, Nadiyah, or our corporation just isn't ready to make that level of commitment, Nadiyah. I'm reminded that the people who are in charge of this DEI world, right, or DEI initiatives in corporations, they oftentimes prioritize aesthetics, they prioritize comfort, and they prioritize keeping the power structure within that organization. And that could be problematic. It is problematic for a number of reasons, right? Because real change doesn't come from staying comfortable. I have a motto that I love to live by: afflict the comfortable and comfort the afflicted. And I think that that's really what's required when we're really getting at the crust of equity, right? Like, we have to work toward actual change. And this means acknowledging first the disparities that exist, right? As I said, 3% in the startup industry, right? The glaring statistics for me is that 3% of venture capital goes to Black and brown founders. 0.0006% of venture capital goes to Black women, right? Calling those disparities, calling those statistics out and acknowledging that first, right? And then unlearning things to change the power structure. I don't know about you guys, but I came up with this whole idea of like reaching for 6 figures. Like, that was a big thing, and it still is a big thing. And I don't know, after taking the leap into my own business, my whole perspective on money, wealth, has changed a lot. And I think that as we start to advocate for equity and creating more equitable environments, either in your workplace or just in the tech industry in general, I think it's really important for us to take a step back and to really see the full picture. Like I said, I was always told, okay, 6 figures, that's a lot of money. So of course, when we think, oh, this big tech company just contributed $1 million to, DEI in some way, shape, or form, of course, you want to clap your hands and applaud, right? But then if you take a step back and you sort of change your perspective just a little bit, I like this exercise of picturing 1 million seconds versus 1 billion seconds. 1 million seconds equals 11 days, right? 1 billion seconds is 31 years. So when you hear million and billion at the end of it, like, because our minds are limited, right? We're human. We start to, we just start to think that's a lot, right? But when you think of it like this, 1 million seconds is 11 days, 11 days away from your loved one, that's not terrible, right? 31 years away from your loved one, that's horrific, right? So when you start to take that perspective and realize, like, Google, for instance, made 181 billion in 2020, right? And then you sort of make these comparisons with these big tech companies and what exactly they're saying they're contributing. 11 days of their 31 years is not going to scratch the surface in terms of closing some of these equity gaps or disparities in the tech industry, right? You start to quickly see when you think about, right, the difference between 1 million and 1 billion, right? You start to see, okay, well, you're hiring a chief diversity officer is not going to necessarily like get us to where we're really looking to be, right? It's we're looking for, like I say, we're looking for you to hand over the bag and you give me a high five at that point, right? So it's not to say that we're, be ungrateful, right? And turn your head away from those contributions, but it's important to sort of take a step back and see the world that exists, right? And how much money there actually is and how big the disparities actually are, right? And then what happens is we're then put in a position where we can actually start to see the issues, like the gaps that exist, and start to build solutions around it, right? And then we can start making people or holding people and companies accountable in this space. So I think those are the things that are really important as it relates to equity. It's just acknowledging and calling out what exists, and then taking a step back and knowing when to applaud, right? And knowing when to hold people accountable. I think that's really important. And then of course, then actually putting solutions together to make that measurable difference. In my opinion, personally, a chief diversity officer isn't going to cut it. It's not exactly, it might be a first step, right? But it's not going to move that mark, right? The idea is to hire and put people in positions of power, and send the money, right? And then lastly, there is inclusion. And as it relates to inclusion, I've experienced quite a lot over the last 2 years pursuing, growing my own company rather. And so I came up with this alternate acronym for DEI: don't erase, illuminate. And so I think when people think of inclusion, they're like, let's make people feel like they belong. Let's make people feel like, that this is, their company, by creating affinity groups and XYZ. You know what really makes me feel included? Ownership. And I think that when it comes to inclusion in the tech space, we have to talk about the importance of ownership for Black and Brown people. And this could look like, all right, either putting people in positions of power, making them CEOs and presidents of companies. It also means funding Black and Brown startups so that there are more Black-owned tech companies in the industry. I also think it's really important when we're talking about inclusion in technology to change our thinking from nobody is doing this to who is already doing the work. Since last May, we all lived through it. Every company's screaming Black Lives Matter, and every company is working to create or increase their DEI initiatives. But I think it's important to acknowledge, like, DEI can sometimes be damaging if you don't do it right. For instance, if there is a Black accelerator, a Black-owned, Black-led accelerator, it is unwise, or not as helpful, rather, to hire a white group to start a accelerator for Black people. Hire the Black group, right, that's doing it. And so I've seen so many corporations put DEI initiatives out there and sometimes botch the job because they don't see the importance of ownership in the tech space. I am founder of the Milky Way Tech Hub, and I've literally been requested over the last 4 weeks to take Tech Hub off of our name, to come up under other organizations. And that completely erases the work that I'm doing, devalues the work that I'm doing. And it just points to the fact that even though there are folks who may have good intentions, their DEI work is damaging, right? And so it's important for us to just acknowledge that sometimes the work is already being done, and to tap into the grassroots organizations that exist that are doing the work and amplify the work that they're doing rather than erase it. One thing I'm really proud of is if you type in Black tech in Milwaukee, the Milky Way Tech Hub pops up. But if a billion-dollar company that has huge DEI issues, right, wants to spin up a quick program and has the funding to do that, all of a sudden you type in Black Tech Milwaukee and you see pages of their company, completely erasing the work of the Milky Way Tech Hub And I think that's just a really good example of why it's more important to amplify the work that's happening, that's being led by Black people, rather than erase or ask them to come up under, be hired, right? Amplify Black ownership in tech and stop erasing the work of Black people. So if you want to support the Milky Way Tech Hub, I encourage you to go to milkywaytechhub.com and click connect and become a member. It's free to do so, and it's a great way to follow our journey and to have access to all of our opportunities and resources and funding that we are providing through our diverse tech ecosystem. I really appreciate you, Devin, for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts on the topics of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Thank you for sharing with us. So at this time, we have probably about 20 minutes left. We'd love to open up the floor to anyone who has any questions, comments, or thoughts at this time. You can now unmute your lines as well if you wish to speak.
Great presentation. Really appreciate you sharing more with us. I'm located in Atlanta, so excited to hear that you will be expanding your efforts to the Metro Atlanta area. I am curious, with the work you're doing and the partnership with American Family, like how is that going? How is it progressing? What do you see? What do they see as the benefit for their organization in engaging with your group?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm thrilled with the partnership that I have with American Family. They have been a great example of being a corporate ally, accomplice, co-conspirator. They've just been amazing. And I say that because they have, from day one, they actually sought me out. And so that means that they did the research, right? And they've been working with me to co-create programming and kind of like what I was saying earlier, really amplifying the work that we're doing, right? And not saying, oh, we need to take the lead, right? Or have the sort of mentality where like we know exactly what to do, but they ask, what is it that you need? What can we provide? And they help us to curate the programming we feel is necessary for our community. And they trust us to do that. So it's been a great partnership. Last year, Fast Company did a write-up on the need for more Black tech hubs. And there's a tech hub in Washington, I think it's called IC3, that they featured in that write-up. And unfortunately, there was a similar issue that I related to, where IC3 only had one institutional backer, which is like government grants or something like that. That's a problem, and one that far too many Black tech hubs experience, throughout their journey. There's a good example here in Milwaukee where there's actually another tech hub called the Milwaukee Tech Hub Coalition. They have 75 corporate backers as of today, I believe, maybe 76 now. And they started after the Milky Way Tech Hub. Milky Way Tech Hub has American Family, right? So I think what we're doing with American Family, and I'm excited for future announcements in the next month or so, is something that we can replicate nationally. Show that this is what's needed for corporations in this space. We need corporate backing, right? And American Family and the way that they're working with the Milky Way Tech Hub is something that we can showcase, show the work, show and prove the amazing outcomes so far and what's up ahead, and hopefully be able to create this model where other Black tech hubs nationally can receive the same sort of backing. Hopefully that answers your question, Victor.
Yes, it definitely did. And I'll pause my questions because I can ask a lot. So I'll see if anyone else has any questions before I jump in with another. All right.
We'll let you go ahead and then we'll come back to others.
Yeah, so you mentioned, having that target of, 6 figures for salary and seeing that as kind of the North Star from an employment standpoint. But when you went into your own business, your vantage point of money appreciation changed. Can you go a little bit deeper on that? And when we think about tech startups and DEI, what your focus is, what's do you have any anxieties in regards to your individual lifestyle that may have changed or altered due to you leaving the corporate world and seeking out your own opportunity?
Yeah. Okay. So there's like two questions in there. The first one, yeah, my outlook on my whole perspective of money has changed so drastically, guys. I started my business in late 2017, early 2018, and when I first got like $5,000 grant or something like that, I was jumping up and down on my bed. I was like, I'm doing it, $5,000. And now I think back to like why I was like that, because I had always like 100,000 was that ceiling, right? I mean, I don't know. I'm, 90s baby. So it's always been like 6-figure everything, right? And so that's like when I got to GE and was, starting to reach 6 figures, I had thought I had made it. And so $5,000, I was thinking, okay, well, I'm just gonna keep going until my business can make $100,000. And then I quickly realized that there's just a lot of money out there. There's just a lot of money. I think I just texted Devin earlier this week. I texted my friends. I was like, there's so much money out there and we're just not tapping into it. And so I bring up the 6-figure piece because I just want people to know like that should not be the ceiling. And it's such a drop in the ocean. And it's almost disrespectful, like when you think about it. And that's why I did that. I showed that example of 1 million seconds versus 1 billion seconds, because it really all of a sudden makes you say like, wait a minute, like these companies are making billions of dollars, but they're convincing us, like, I don't even know what 100,000 seconds, but they're convincing us first, that so little is a lot. So yeah, my perspective has changed quite a bit. And I think it's because I've seen now in the startup space, I've seen white guys I wake up with an idea and all of a sudden, because they're in Cali or something, right? Silicon Valley, oh, they've got a $500,000 check written to them, right? And I'm like, wait a minute, but you just have an idea. You didn't even prove anything yet, right? But because of their network, right, they're able to get this much money. And so when you sort of change your circle and you start to meet people who have access to these dollars, you start to realize like, oh, $100,000 isn't what I thought it was, right? And so just my outlook has changed completely because of that. And also because I realized that these corporations have money to like hand over. And when I mentioned Milwaukee Tech Up Coalition, somebody did a write-up in the Business Journal that they've got $8 million from these corporations. And so I'm like, some of that's got to come over here. You know what I mean? Like, if these corporations have $8 million just to hand over for a tech ecosystem, like that should tell you that there's a lot of money out there for whatever it is that you're looking to build out. And I just want to, I think it's important for us to be more transparent and talk more about money. And so I'm trying to do that as I learn. Like I'm letting people know like there's just a lot out there. And I think it's important for us to just recognize that and to not be afraid to ask. So I think your other question was like, have I experienced any anxiety around starting my own company and how it's changed my lifestyle? Not so much, maybe just a little bit. But at the end of the day, I know that I really truly believe in the vision of Milky Way Tech Hub. And because of that, I've been able to get other folks to believe, and that's helped in terms of generating revenue and making a lot of the programming that I've discussed earlier happen. So hopefully that answers. Any other questions?
Hey, I had a quick question. So I wanted to ask, how did you go about like setting up the initial infrastructure of your business? Like, I don't know if you were coming like straight out of your corporate or if you're still in corporate. I'm sure when you were building the business. So how did you balance that time-wise? How did you do that as like setting up like the initial like framework for your business?
I think it was a matter of me knowing that I just had to just do and learn on the way. it was never my goal to be an expert first and to start, but to always gain experience as I go, right? And so I started quick as like an LLC, literally. Like, I think I started with LegalZoom, just quick making an LLC. And then from there, I said, well, what's my services? I wanted Jet Constellations to help. I knew I wanted Jet to help Black and brown people to make headway in the startup space. So we were initially consulting, and we quickly evolved into a custom software company because we realized that even when Black and brown folks got the funding, like $5,000, $10,000, right, which isn't a lot of funding, they still had a hard time building out the product because they didn't either have the skill set or didn't know how to find a CTO. And so it just made sense for us to sort of restructure and move into the software development space. But it wasn't until we became more community facing with our our social impact arm, the Milky Way Tech Hub, that things really start to take off. And from there, we've since made Jet Constellations a C Corp, and allowing for more folks to invest and scale the way that we need to. Any other questions?
Thank you. I had one quick question. When you look at partnerships with other companies, how do you kind of decide the kind of partners that will work with your organization in a way that I guess is either consistent with the vision and the kind of direction that you're going? And have you had to turn down partners in the past over time because
Absolutely.
of differences?
Absolutely. I think that's a great question, Samuel. I am in a fight right now where literally some companies want to say, oh, we partner with the Milky Way Tech Hub. I won't allow them to do that. You don't get to claim the work that we've done without actively participating or partnering, co-creating in some way, shape, or form, right? You don't get to use our logo and say that you are, a DEI advocate without helping, right? In an equitable way, right? So I have those conversations all the time because, corporations are like, oh, add us to your newsletter. Now we're partners. Stop, full stop, right? Like, and it takes us back to the 11 days and 32-year thing, right? Like, you're not about to give me like 2 seconds of your time and call us partners. So I do have to have those really hard conversations. But yeah, to answer your question, I have had to turn folks down. It has cost conflict, but it's all about, standing for something, right? And I know the change that I want to make is going to take more heavy lifting than what some corporations are wanting to offer. What I do know is when I do stand on that, then there are other corporations who show and prove like they will in fact back me, right? Like American Family. And when they show that, then all of a sudden other corporations are pressured, like, then we should do it too. Like, this isn't just an add them to my newsletter thing, right? So I think that's one of the reasons why it's really important to just, stick to your guns and don't let up, right? Because because when you get when a corporation shows interest, you're tempted a little bit to want to add them to the logo to build credibility. But when you believe in your vision and you know how to get there, it's just, you have to have very specific asks.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And do you have any plans in the future I'm in the DC area. Do you have any plans in the future for doing work or coordinating with any project or programs in the DC area in the foreseeable future?
Yeah, well, so I'm looking to partner with The Gathering Spot. I don't know if you guys have heard of Brian Wilson. I think he's starting something in DC. So that's one avenue. Also, I do have Steam and Dream program that we're looking to launch in partnership with Hip Hop Architect later on this year. I want to say in the fall in DC. So I'm looking forward to that as well. We do have a venture fund that we're raising, and so I'm looking forward to just, being able to travel different cities like DC and maybe a state one day, right? And sharing the wealth.
If you come this way, then I just want to know, because that would be helpful to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. Well, I hope you guys, I'm going to put it in the chat actually, because it would be really helpful. One thing that people always ask, or corporations ask, like, how many members do you have? And I started off just like, you know, not really counting the folks that were coming to our meetups, and just kind of just going with it. And I've learned the importance of actually being able to have those metrics. And so if you do sign up to our distribution list, you become a community member, and it does certainly help us. We are targeting, I think, 250 by the end of fall. And so I'm going to drop this in the chat. I can get back. There we go.
That's 250 members by the end of the fall?
250 community members.
Community members, okay. Okay, thank you.
And hopefully 10 corporate members by the end of the year. Any other questions, Devin?
Yep, the floor is still open if anyone has anything to ask or share before I close it out.
I have one last question. So is your goal to eventually completely, I don't know, have you completely transitioned out of corporate and into full-time in your business, or are you just gonna do both? Or what's your like end goal? What's your dream for your company?
Yeah, so my end goal is to focus primarily on venture capital. So I'm an emerging fund manager right now. I feel like that is the best way to make the difference, is just getting the funds and wiring. So I'm gonna be putting a lot of my efforts around VC, and the Milky Way Tech Hub will be that platform or headquarters for that. So the STEM education entrepreneurship program will help to keep with that momentum. In terms of corporate, I did leave corporate last year. I do teach on the side right now to help me pay all my fees, but hopefully full-time very soon in terms of letting that go after my PhD. Well, I appreciate you all letting me share time and space with you. This was great.
Yes, thank you for joining us today.
Awesome. Great job, Nadiyah. Great job. Loved it.
You.
So I want to share a few links with you so you can stay in touch with Nadiyah and see what she has going on. So the first is her LinkedIn. Be sure to connect with her on LinkedIn. She keeps everyone updated on what she has going on and sends out invites for her meetups that happens on the regular. So and be sure to pop in with those. Okay. All right. A little multitasking happening here. Also, be sure to check out the website for her company, Jet Constellations. Dropping that in here now so you can learn more about what she has going on the software side of things, as well as the Milky Way. She's already shared the Milky Way link to register for that community, so I won't drop that one. So be sure to connect with Nadiyah on those platforms. Then also, we want to remind you and encourage you to register for the 2021 Virtual BDPA Conference that is happening August 12th through the 14th. It will be virtual again this year, so you can join from wherever you're at. So that's 2021.bdpa.org. Just shared that in the chat as well. So be sure to check out the conference. We'd love to have you there. And last but certainly not least, the recording of this session, as well as our previous Tech and Career Talks and future, will be and or are available at bdpa.org/Tech and Career Talks. So a few links for you there in the chat. If you want to be more connected to BDPA or Nadiyah, you can do all of that through one of those links. Will get you to your end goal. Are there any other comments or thoughts before we close?
When is the next session?
It will be July 9th. We have Anissa Lumpkin with the U.S. Air Force talking about her HBCU Collider and the Small Business Transfer Program with the Air Force.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Yep, Nadiyah, you should definitely check that out too. Might be a great opportunity for Jet in the Milky Way. Some potential software work with the Air Force potentially. So
okay.
Definitely make sure you have that information. But thank you all to everyone for joining. Enjoy your weekend. Stay safe. Stay blessed. We'll see you next time.
Take care. Bye-bye.